Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my friend, co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Tracy, we have a very special guest today, Alison McElroy. She's the founder and the CEO of Kaleidoscope Growth Advisors. Kaleidoscope Growth Advisors is a woman-owned, full-service franchise advisory firm offering a franchise incubation program to launch, evolve, and scale strong, sustainable franchise system. Ali is a recognized franchise industry leader with demonstrated success over nearly 2 decades in franchise and international business that span more than 24 brands, over 30 countries, and thousands of franchise units. Prior to launching Kaleidoscope, she was with Lift Brands. Lift Brands is a global multi-brand fitness and franchise company with 2,000 plus locations in 20 countries, including investments in Snap Fitness, 9 Round Kickboxing, Fitness on Demand, and Fit Stop. So I'm so excited that you could join us today. I'm really looking forward to this interview, Ali.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Ali, you have clearly had an impact, not only nationally, but globally. But before we get into all of that, I'm sure, Rebecca, you would agree with me. We would love to hear just who you were as a child, right? The things that influenced you. And, I don't just take us back, start there.
Sure. Well, so I am a native Minnesotan and a very proud native Minnesotan, but I grew up very early with some cross-cultural influence. My mom was not born in the US. She was born in London, and is Belgian by background. So in a very early stage in my life, I was exposed to different cultures. I think that exposure to different cultures and languages really instilled for me a love of travel, a love of languages, a love of adventure, and kind of just curiosity about people and culture.
I love that. Well, first off, I want to know, since your mom's Belgium, did she introduce you to chocolate?
Oh, yes. We have a lot of family rituals around Belgian chocolate, which is the best in the world. And we definitely had significant family moments or the Belgian chocolates. Yeah, for
I
sure.
love it. Well, I am Swiss, born and raised in Switzerland, so I will arm wrestle you whether the Belgian chocolate is better over the Swiss chocolate. But similar, Ali, we have a lot of history around holidays and chocolate fondues and gifts around it. And it's one of the things I use in building friendships is to share chocolate. So to me, chocolate in some, a large part is love, right? So, all right. So you had this multicultural, adventurous life. Tell us as you grew up to be a teenager, what influence your mom and dad may have had on you.
You know, for my family, for me and my family, we uh, that those teenagers were really difficult. Those early years, I had a wonderful family, loving family, but unfortunately, my dad was diagnosed with cancer when I was about 10 years old, and terminal cancer. So he died when I was 14. You can see me getting a little emotional about it. It
Yeah.
always is. But that was definitely the illness and everything that comes with that was really very formative in kind of who I am, what my childhood looked like, and who I am today. I was really fortunate. My dad was a great dad, a lawyer, a strong business person, and still great values. I never got to know him as an adult, but he still had a huge influence on my life. And my mom as well. She was at a very young age, a widow with 4 kids, not in her native country, and we were surrounded by community that really um, supported us through all of that, and it And so that really lays a foundation for a lot in, I think, my approach to life later, and in how I hope to show up for the people in my personal life and in the business world.
Wow. So sorry about your dad.
Thanks, Tracy.
Uh, what kind of law did he practice?
He was actually an international business lawyer and worked with a lot of startups and established companies on helping them expand their business.
Ah, so that must have had a big impact or influence on your choices to become an attorney.
I think so, and in kind of both ways. On the one hand, I did end up becoming an international business lawyer and working in that area, but I also kind of going through that decision of what are you going to do for a career in college. I really wanted to strike my own path, so I was sort of opposed to just following in footsteps and thinking about that, and wanted to forge my own path. And maybe I did, but clearly, things influence you. And so I think both are true.
Yeah.
What was important to you? You had this beautiful foundation, and you're so blessed that the community came around your mama while she was raising the four of you. They set a great example as parents. You were in a solid community. So what within you said, I need to forge my own path? And how did you see that for yourself? What is it that you wanted to accomplish in the world as an adult?
That's such a good question. I think it really evolved over time. I think if I look back and think about the themes that, um, just the sort of adventurous, the taking on opportunities, both of my parents, my mom moving halfway across the world to um, to start a family and live, my dad going the other half across the world where he met my mom and for a work opportunity. Those were big in big and in little ways. Just taking advantage of opportunities and seeking that sense of adventure. I don't know if I knew that when I was young, but clearly looking back, they modeled great examples for me uh, on taking opportunities and being open to trying new things.
Yeah, they were both adventurous in their own ways, right? One in their personal life, one in their professional life. So let me ask you, how did that influence this amazing work that you've done for 20 years on advocating for human rights? Your mom was an immigrant, your dad was a business attorney, you became a business attorney. Like, how did that all come about with the advocating?
Yeah, well, the advocating, I mean, in a couple different ways. So you said human rights, and we didn't talk about it before, but I've been involved in an organization on a nonprofit basis since I was in law school. That's the Advocates for Human Rights. And that organization works globally, nationally, and locally to support human rights. And so that, I think, part of the initial draw for me to be a lawyer was to make an impact and to make a difference in the world. And I don't know that I had a clear idea of exactly how I was going to do that, right? I think as you have experiences, the clarity comes, but working with the advocates and working with asylum seekers and that has been a way for me to give back to the community and look at that, which is uh, different than the pure corporate business law, but also a way to put that legal expertise in and that desire to make some sort of impact in the world to use.
It's interesting because what I'm seeing here with you, Ali, is this delicate balance that you have between brains, right? Solving problems, looking strategically, analyzing things with this heart that you have that is driven to make a difference. And law allows some of that, business allows some of that. And of course, the volunteer work really demonstrates how you pull all of those things together. So my question regarding all of that, Ali, is if you look back at your life, um, Do you see some kind of a thread or theme or something that just seems to show up again and again?
Rebecca, it's such a good question. It reminds me of this commencement speech I heard earlier this year. There, the professor was talking to recent graduates about, and that's such an exciting time. You're starting your career, starting your thing, and everything is looking forward. And what he shared was that you can't, looking backwards, you can look over your shoulder and create a narrative and a story. And it looks like those puzzle pieces just fit together perfectly. And it was a plan that was outlined from day one. But looking forward, it's really hard to plot those lines. You can have an idea, but there's an element of you don't know what opportunities will come, you don't know what challenges will come. You may have a plan, but life doesn't always go to your plan. So if I look back at kind of my pathway in my career, it's like I can build a story looking backwards, and each opportunity that I've had or each thing that I've had has built on the thing before. But I would not have known from the start. I mean, 20 years ago, if you had asked me, are you going to be an expert in franchising? I would have asked you, what is franchising? Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the answer that I have, Rebecca.
Yeah, we can put the dots together going back, can't we?
2020 hindsight.
This really is, yeah.
Always fascinated with how people can recognize an opportunity. Like one person can recognize an opportunity and one person can totally miss an opportunity. How do you recognize an opportunity? Do you have to have an idea of what your end goal is so that you can say, okay, this opportunity aligns with my end goal? Or is it just haphazard, right? Is it haphazard?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you have no idea or no plan, that's hard to move forward. And it's hard to, take a step or build. There's no building block to build from if you don't have a starting point or a starting idea. So I really think, at least in my experience, it's somewhere in the middle. You have to have some idea of where you're going, but also some openness. And I think that's learned, and I'm not sure I'm great at it yet, but I'm still working on it. But I think in my professional career, I can think of a very specific example of that balance between the seeing an opportunity and not seeing one. And it's because an opportunity came twice. And that was actually my transition from being a lawyer to moving in-house, also as a lawyer, but an in-house at Snap Fitness. And so I had been working at a law firm early in my career, and Snap Fitness was a client, and had a conversation at one point, random conversation about a deal we were working on for Snap Fitness. And the founder, Peter, at one point said to me something, not necessarily the most flattering thing that anyone has said to me, but he said something to the effect of, "Hey, Allie, you know what I really need is someone like you to keep me organized." And I remember that, like, keep me organized moment. And then fast forward 2 years, I had, gotten some more experience. I'd continued to work with Snap Fitness. It was a one-time conversation, and I was looking for, at that point, a new opportunity. And I had a conversation with Peter, and as it turned out, he needed a general counsel, and he brought me in as his first general counsel as the business was growing. And I remember distinctly sitting in my very first board meeting. They had just gotten a private equity investment, sitting in my first board meeting. I'm in my suit. I'm in a sling because I've dislocated my shoulder, but I'm trying to look really professional. Because I haven't met these board members before. And we sit down, and Peter starts telling the story of how he hired me. And the board wants to know, what's your background? Who is this girl sitting at this table? So he starts telling them about me. And he tells this story to the board to say, well, I tried to hire Allie once before. And he means this conversation of, I need someone like you to keep me organized.
Oh.
And so that is a great example. Look, I didn't see that. I didn't really see that opportunity the first time, but it came back around. And I'm so grateful it did, because it was a great opportunity, and I learned a lot and had a lot of opportunities through that.
I love that story because you're talking about being open to opportunity. It came once, you heard it, you didn't see it as an opportunity. You kept moving forward with whatever you were doing. It came back kind of like a 2x4 and brought you back in front of the board to be in-house general counsel. How many times I wonder, ladies, where we miss those opportunities. It was subtle, but sometimes we just miss it. How can we be better at paying attention to truly know this is something I need to act on, rather than, that's just an idea. It doesn't align with who I am. How do you know, Allie, and Tracy, same question for you. How do you know when something is right for you? That's the right opportunity. I should jump on it.
That is the question, isn't it? And there's not necessarily one right opportunity, but there's a path that you choose. And so, there's a great example of it worked out in the end, but of missing one. I think what I've learned over time of having these things is, I think the way to identify the opportunity is to start by telling people you're open to one, to yourself and others. And that was a really great piece of career advice that I got at one point from a mentor, is who was sharing his own story and said, I you have to you have to advocate for yourself, and people need to know you're open. If you tell everybody at every stage, oh, I'm happy, everything is perfect, they don't necessarily know that you're open to looking or talking about something else.
That's a great point.
It really is.
That's
It really is. Because if they think your life is exactly the way you want it, you have no desire to enhance it, change it, move it, then they're probably not going to be sharing, what about this or what about that? So you have to let people know, I'm open to what's happening.
Yeah, it reminds me of those little profile circles on LinkedIn, right? If, somebody looks like they have a brilliant career and they're happy, you wouldn't think twice. Well, maybe a headhunter would, but most people wouldn't think twice about saying, hey, come on board. But the minute you see that green circle that says open to work, that person is looking for opportunities. And I guess from there, it's a matter of weighing the opportunity against, I don't know. You know what, Rebecca? I'm thinking I would need to check my last page of my Zarkle profile to see decision-making filters are, and then align it, right? Align it with the values.
With the values. And Allie, we had this wonderful interview with Todd Recknagel and his wife, Christy, who are with a investment company that invests in franchisors and et cetera. And he talked a little bit about what you're saying. And he said, when they assess opportunities and potential partnerships and ways that they can help others, they always double check it with, does it align with their values, their core values? And I know you, with Kaleidoscope, you operate by a very clear set of values. I read a little bit about it. I'm wondering if you could expound on it. Curiosity, connection, character, community. Can you address that and how that influences the way you work at Kaleidoscope?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things over my career and the different experience that I've had, and then in different opportunities that really showed something that really the experiences really showed me, is that when you have values in leadership, if your company or you as a person, you have values, it really provides a great framework for making decisions. And a great way to build culture. And I think we all know that in theory. I think when you, but putting that into practice, the results of not having values or not making decisions in accordance with what you as a person or you as an organization said were your values, that makes it really challenging, particularly I think in relationship businesses, which is what franchising is at all levels. And that's the approach at Kaleidoscope that we have. All of our client relationships are really partnerships of different forms. And so when I started Kaleidoscope, one of the things that was really important to me was that I wanted to work with really great people. And in order for us to be successful in the approach that we take, it's a shared success model. So we have to be on the same page about how we're going to approach issues and how you're going to go forward, how you're going to grow the business. Working with early stage businesses, there's so much we don't know about that future pathway. We have ideas of, we want to grow, we want to have franchises, we want to get to the next level. But when you're stuck with those difficult moments, particularly in a partnership business, how are you going to make the decisions when you get to difficult decision points? And so uh, one of the things that was important to me is that as I'm talking to potential partners and clients is to use values as a way to understand, who am I? What is Kaleidoscope? And if we align on our values, well, then we can get through any tough decision or any tough moment because we know kind of who we are, how we think about things, and how we're going to work together. So the values for Kaleidoscope are curiosity, connection, character, and community.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice. Can you tell us a little bit more about the value of curiosity? Why that one? What made you choose that?
Quite frankly, because me personally, it's as the founder of the company, I'm very curious. And I think that, that curiosity has really served me well and is something that we bring to the clients. It's looking at, what are the unique insights? What are the perspectives? How do we learn about what's going on with the business? What are the needs? How do we go forward? I think curiosity of getting an understanding of not just the what, but the who and the why of what a business is, and then how that might shape what the future plan is. So it all starts with a natural state for me, as I am sort of incurably curious, but also applying that in a business sense, because I think it's so important.
Rebecca is also insatiably curious,
I'm
right, Rebecca?
insatiably curious. Yeah. Well, actually, Ali, what came up for me as you're describing this curiosity is how just even the name Kaleidoscope fits into that, as well as this theme that runs through your life. Because a kaleidoscope, you're looking at a lot of different things and you're moving it and adjusting it to see what if we did it this way and what if we did it that way and how about if we turn it the other way. So it's opportunity kind of in a tube, so to speak, but we're moving the parts to see what's going to be the most beautiful business that we can build, the most successful business that we can. So the name Kaleidoscope, and I don't know if that's how you chose it, but that's what came up to me, combined with this theme you have, and then combined with this curiosity that you have. What if we did it this way? What if we tweaked it there? And what if we did that? Okay, I'm sorry, I got really excited about that. Is that how you see it too?
I do. That's exactly what I liked about the name from the meaning perspective. Those taking, I think they're plastic now, but originally the kaleidoscopes is different pieces of colored glass. You have building that foundation, but as you twist and turn the kaleidoscope, it's creating all these different works of art and constantly changing. I think particularly in most franchise businesses are consumer facing, but business overall, that innovation, that change, the ability to look at things at from different perspectives, those were all ideas that I think that I thought Kaleidoscope could stand for and were important. As a really practical matter, I was sharing some of my thoughts of what I wanted to build with my new business with my hairdresser. And she was helping me brainstorm because all the names that I wanted, I couldn't get the domain, or I could, someone else was already using something similar, all these things that people who've created brands and grown them know that you run into these practical challenges of other people already have the name or you can't get the domain. And so it's a very practical matter. How I came up with the name was getting my haircut and another small business owner helped saying, what about Kaleidoscope?
That's great. That folds right into the value of community.
Right.
It does. Yeah.
Which I was going to ask you if you can elaborate on that anyway, the community aspect of the
Yeah,
values.
think so. The community, I really believe in investing in the people and businesses around us, right?
Mm.
And so that, on the one hand, franchising itself has been a really great community for me. It's one of the things I love about it. It's why, when I wanted to start my own business, that I wanted to stay in franchising somehow for that community. But
Mhm.
beyond that, I think most franchises are very community oriented. We have uh, whether they're hiring people from their community as local small businesses, creating small businesses and services for your community, and beyond that, the impact that we can have. So, um, all those aspects of building community, being a part of our community, are
Yeah.
important and foundational. And then one of the things that we do as an organization is we are giving back on a charitable basis, is a core part of our philosophy and foundation, and that falls in that community pillar.
How cool. I'm just seeing this incredible thread through your life that just is consistent, but still
Yeah.
way open to opportunity and then helping others observe their own opportunities and what they can do. So before we get too far, please tell our audience what Kaleidoscope Growth Advisors is. What are the services that you provide?
Yeah, so Kaleidoscope Growth Advisors is a boutique franchise advisory company. So we work with um, different early stage, emerging and growing, um, mostly franchise brands to evolve and scale their business. We do that in a couple different ways. One of the real focuses is our franchise incubator program and a new approach on helping franchise startups.
Yeah, and they need so much help. At Zorkel, as you know, we work with a lot of startup franchisors, micro emerging, all the way into the massive. And those first few years, you got to have people alongside of you. You got to build that community. You got to build trusted advisors. And with your 2 decades worth of experience growing other companies, and looking at it both from a creative, what's the potential, and the legal aspects, this is a natural place for you to be to help. What do you see, out of curiosity? There's that word again. Woo!
It's a good one.
Curiosity.
Out of curiosity, what are the biggest challenges that you see emerging franchisors are experiencing?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think, we talk about emerging franchisors, but there are a lot of variation even within that. And I think the real purpose and origin of Kaleidoscope and the focus on the emerging franchise stage is, one, it's a stage I really love on the business. So, but it was a place where I saw a need and there's a gap. We have amazing vendors and support and experienced business people and in franchising, but the ability to access at an early stage of your business really deep expertise is a little bit of a challenge. Of how do you do that? How do you know who to trust? And the decisions that you make when you're a very early stage franchisor really carry forward, especially if you think about signing a 10-year franchise agreement,
Oh,
right? Or
yeah.
who is your first franchisee and are they successful? Those really early decisions really form the path. And you can recover from anything, but it's a little bit easier to grow if you set some of the foundation first, and working with having access to the know-how and experience is really helpful. And so I wanted to create a way where we could have an aligned partnership model where to meld that experience with the needs of an early stage franchisor. And because I think then for the real needs are, if you're just starting, are you really ready for franchising? I think that's one of the biggest challenges is you see businesses that are phenomenal businesses that could be great are just not quite ready and need to do just a couple little things before they get started. And so really making sure that you've done your homework on what does it really take to get started. I think that's one challenge. The other challenges really come in franchising, one of the great things about franchising is really the opportunity to scale a business quickly, but scaling comes with challenges around what does your infrastructure look like? What does your funding look like? How do you do this by step? Do you have the right technology? And really back to the basics of, can you sell franchises? How are you selling franchises? Is your offering designed to attract the kind of candidates that you want? Is your franchise sales process effective? Are you actually able to talk to people and vet and make sure that on both sides this is? And so I think for a lot of emerging franchises, just that it's the foundation, and then really understanding how do franchise sales work? Franchising is a whole different business than running a restaurant or running a gym or whatever the underlying business is. It's a completely different business. To franchising requires some different skill sets that are not rocket science, but they're just different, and they might be a different skill set than what you had before. I think that's the biggest challenge as for any business, but for an emerging franchisor, is to figure out, how do I figure out how to do these things, and who do I trust, and what advice do I take?
Oh my goodness. My mind is boggled just from all of the different pieces all of the different elements that go into the startup phase of franchising. So how do you streamline all of this for your clients? How do you make it make sense? How do you bring to their attention the fact that all of these moving parts are needed, but not to be overwhelmed, because are you doing it, those different parts for them? Are you guiding them through the process? How does that work?
Yeah. Thanks, Tracy. It's a great question. So the way that I work is that we sit down and we start with an assessment of the business. And really, one of the things we're really proud of and really focus on is that we really look at the business holistically, starting with the owner's goals and opportunities, and then moving on from there to some of the more technical, right? The technology, the et cetera. I think the having, in my time in franchising, it's been almost 20 years, but I've worked with more than 24 brands across 30 countries and representing thousands of units. So some of that triage on what's important when helps to narrow in. So what we provide to, especially those companies going through our franchise incubator program, is we've pre-vetted a network of the different services that you have. We have a step-by-step guide that we adjust, but a step-by-step guide on, these are the things that we need to do to get in place. These are things we need to look at to make sure that you're ready. And of course, the obvious ones are, you need your franchise disclosure document and your franchise agreement and your operations manual. So, what documents do you need to get ready? But then beyond that, what's your sales process? What's your budget? You're going to have some incremental and real costs on things. What are you going to do from a marketing perspective? Is your technology set up to be scaled? Do you need to look at your vendor relationships? And so what we do is we come and we do an assessment of the business to figure out, where are you? And then build those building blocks, starting with each stage, and then building as the business grows, build and have a plan going forward.
This is like full cycle to me as I'm listening to this, because was it Peter that said something, I need someone like you to help me get organized? Was that his name? And
that was.
So that's kind of what this is, right?
It is. At the time, I interpreted it as like, I didn't spend 3 years in law school to be a secretary, but I definitely think that that's not how he meant it.
No.
And that's a lot of the value, is just trying to help narrow the number of decisions you need to make and bring that expertise on. These are the things that we need to focus on now, and these are the things that make a difference. And here's some other things, but we can wait, or we'll look at those down the line. But there's key levers that really make a difference in getting you started and getting you started right.
So so again, I think it's amazing how this third time around, here we are, this is exactly what he was thinking and had pointed out, that was in your skill set and gifting that you have, and here you are doing it for other companies, those emerging franchisors that can benefit from your years of experience and bumping heads and watching other people bumping heads. So I think that's just absolutely brilliant. The one thing you said that I thought was also interesting, so not only is it kind of an organization, you use the word triage, that they are things that are a greater priority or causing greater pain at this point. And your audit or your assessment kind of pulls that out so we can address that quickly so we can get to that next stage of growth or the next big goal, correct?
Yep. Yep. And so, I mean, a simple example is until you sell a franchise, there's no one you need to support, right? So building out your franchise sales organization, you need to understand, what is my support going to look like? Because a prospective franchisee is going to want to know that, right? To invest in a brand, you want to know that you're supported and have some building blocks. But knowing that those building blocks are going to evolve over time. And so looking step by step of, okay, on day one, before I have any franchisees, I'll just use some outrageous, I don't need 3 franchise support people when I have no franchisees, but I need a plan of who's going to do what, when is the right time to bring those people in, and how do we think about those evolutions in each phase, taking things step by step.
Great
Yeah.
example.
Some of the things that you spoke about, I was looking at your core values, and there were 2 lines that you mentioned. You said, what's important and when, which to me goes right to the curiosity. And then the other is a pre-vetted network. So you apparently have a pre-vetted network of people to introduce your clients to, and that goes right to connection and community.
There it is, our 4 values.
Structured it all.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's really the goal, is to bring those pieces in. So my philosophy in building the franchise incubator is the goal is to build a team of experts within your own organization. So that's one of the ways we're different, and the incubator is different than some of the other options out there, is that I'm not building an outsourced organization to do it for you. We are building the resources and the tools and the connections that you need to build that experience and value within your organization, and to look at, every organization has different strengths and different needs. So to understand, okay, we all need a franchise lawyer. If you're in a franchise, you need a franchise lawyer. Great. We have pre-vetted ones. But then beyond that, what are the connections and the resources and the services that you might need to really be able to be best in class and build that strong, sustainable franchise system, and do it using your internal resources where that makes sense, and figuring out who do you bring in to really help you, and what expertise do you build in-house.
And when, of course, when you need to bring that in. All right, ladies, we're at the top of the hour. I don't know where the time went. This is amazing. So last question I have for you, Ali, is how do people get hold of you to learn more about you personally, and also what Kaleidoscope Growth Advisors is up to?
Yeah, the best place is probably our website. So it's kaleidoscopegrowth.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. I want to thank you, Ali, for joining us. Tracy, I'm going to punt it over to you because you always have this beautiful wrap up. So it's in your court, girl.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I have to applaud you, Ali, because not only on your 4 C's for the business, you seem to know yourself really well, and you seem to know your business purpose very well. And I think that's what you help your clients find within their own organizations, because not every business has that. We see businesses that don't know their purpose, or the owners don't know their purpose, or their own skill set and who they need to surround themselves with in order to succeed, which also led me to think about, when you were just speaking about building the team of experts within your organization, you really are teaching them how to fish. You're not giving them a fish. You're teaching emerging franchises, how to fish so that they can fish for a lifetime. It's not just a fast connection. Oh, I got a guy, right? You're teaching them how to build this team of experts within their organization, and you're really making them sustainable, which is really a beautiful thing. So I just have to applaud you for that. I loved having you on the show. I don't know where the time went,
I don't know
Rebecca.
either, but
This was really a nice conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
our pleasure. You said it so well, Tracy, and I had to giggle just a little bit because we work with a lot of lawyers, and there's so few that see the big picture, and they certainly don't always get the sales and marketing side, right? In fact, many lawyers are good at making sure the deals don't get done. So I gotta say, I was impressed with how you put an emphasis on that side, because it really is what ultimately grows the business. So beautiful conversation. Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
And thank you to our audience today that's listening in to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. Share, like, comment Allie McElroy's interview today. And of course, we'll see you next week on another episode.